Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Voice by Matt show. My name is Matt Bertho, and I'm your host. And today I have Michael C. Bryan, one of my good friends, and he lives in Los Angeles. He's from one of my favorite cities, New York. But before there, he was on the West Coast, a little bit above where he's at now. And that's where he
Nobody's
grew up.
above anyone in Los Angeles.
Oh. So, Mike, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks. As we say here, welcome, the little welcome sign. I just love to have my little welcome. Isn't that cute?
I love
Thank
that.
you. I appreciate it.
So, Mike, I connected with you through a mutual friend and about 4 years ago, maybe. And we just started kind of following each other on social media. And, you know, I liked Mike's messages. I'd watch him do his walks on in LA, kind of giving rants about the people and
Rants. That's
the
great.
vibes about,
Right.
you know, how LA is so different than anywhere else in the world, really. But this whole show is about how you found your voice. And I know you've had a crazy journey to get to this point, and it's still crazy. Like you
Literally
told me
crazy.
yeah,
Literally crazy.
all the time, all the things that happen for you in Los Angeles, and some really cool things are happening for you right now that we can't talk about completely, right? But yeah, let's just start there. Kind of origin story, where you grew up, and go. Let's do this.
So, I mean, so, you know, I remember David Frost years ago. He was a great talk show guy. My God, that mug is the size of a small toddler. So David Frost used to, like, we could put a whole state in there. David Frost used to say, he never wanted to interview anybody. And he always had like a conversation, right? And I always feel like, you know, because I watch like you, a lot of YouTube. I'm one of those, you know, guys that watch that stuff. I always find the things that are the most interesting are the most genuine, that are the most truthful, that are the most honest, right? And because I've never really fit into this world of new thought, self-help, inspirational in a way that I've quite understood, you know, I want to make sure that in this conversation that we're not just talking about my voice, but I also have to, you know, pay respect to your unfetteredness. I've told you for a very long time now. And I want to make sure you understand, everybody that is maybe watching this or hearing this, this guy is absurdly like, I thought it was like toxic positivity. I thought it was all bullshit. Sorry, bull crap. And
You're good. You're good. You're good.
But I realized you're like the real thing. Like you have this you're much sweeter than I'm ever going to be. I mean, I live in West Hollywood. I mean, you know, see you next Tuesday is the state motto, and particularly for California.
Wow.
So, but I have to say, you know, it's so, after all this time of, you know, texting and talking about life, it's just nice to be here with you, because I know for a fact that people are striving to find emotional equilibrium. They're really striving to find emotional balance. And as you know, I'm voracious for the talk behind the door. Everybody's about the talk in front of the door.
Yeah.
But I understand the talk behind the door. And you and I have had a lot of talks behind closed doors about things. And I really, really respect that, because we talked about how struggles are intrinsic to why we're here.
Yep.
And it's all about the balance, you know, because we're in a state of huge societal imbalance right now, massive imbalance. And so I just wanted to let you know that, you know, it's just fabulous what you're doing, and the way in which you are sharing that just kind, sweet heart of yours. And like me, you used to be fat, which I love. used to be fat.
Oh yeah, I was big boy.
I was a big boy. I never knew I was fat back then either. Did you know?
I mean, yeah, when I was rocking the 46 waist, I kind of knew that something was a little off there.
I was always about the expandable waistline, the one that had, you know, you didn't have to, like, it just expanded with you. Yeah.
It feels so good.
Yeah. I was all about putting like a diet soda on my belly while I was watching Will and Grace. I was like, this is good. I was like, okay, I can live like this. I'm okay. And one day I was like, this might not be a good look. I remember years ago with my ex-boyfriend, we were in Florida, And there was a photo taken by the pool, and I was sitting there, and I was in my Nathan Lane stage, which, I never liked that. Everyone called me Nathan Lane, and I always thought there's something kind of insulting about that, even though he's brilliant, right?
Yeah.
And I was at the pool, and I had a glass in my hand, a drink, and I was, of course, smoking weed in my younger days, and drink. And I looked at the photo, and I was like this really fat gay guy, and I was like, oh my God, this is my destiny. This is not good. And they looked at the photo on the computer in Florida, and we laughed really hard. But then my heart fell because they were laughing not with me, but at me, but kept saying with me. And so when you talk about voice, right? So for my, this work we talk about, like whatever the frig people call it, new thought, new think, whatever. I never thought I ever had even, and I've got an ego the size of all of Los Angeles. I am legitimately narcissistic, and I know that, which is why I work with a lot of like wealthy, arrogant, narcissistic people. I like them. They're my people. So because it's hashtag all about me.
Just embrace it, own it. Here we go.
Well, stop. We all are narcissistic and egoic to it. Now, is malevolent narcissism to a horrible, violent degree a slender portion of society? Absolutely. But I always have had that in me. But the reason that happened was, you talk about voice. Ever since I was very young, I was raised around psychology. So I've never felt I was really like, who am I? Like, I always think, I watch people and influencers. I'm like, what makes you think you have the not right? That's what pops into my head. What makes you think like you can sit here and tell people how to live and what to do, give them advice on their life?
The authority.
Yeah. Like, where do you don't have a lock on anything. It's like, it's just your opinion.
Yeah.
And your opinion has worked for you, but it doesn't mean that it's the truth. It's your personal truth, as we call it now. Mm-hmm. But this idea that we live in a state where this opinion, it's like, I was thinking about this with voice, knowing and hearing and understanding what your own personal integration of many different disparaging elements of you is the voice. It's like there's a very famous actor who is now long gone, but they are considered a grande dame of the New York theater. So, and they're revered, which is always the trick. If you're revered, then of course your opinion matters and it's considered to be truth. So I'm an actor, a writer, and I'm also a mentor and a healer for people. Mm-hmm. And I never thought I would ever say healer, but here we are.
Yep.
I'm very down to earth about that crap. And so this person said, acting cannot be taught. Acting, it's a gift.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, Lottie friggin' dada. Well, good for you. And I love your personal truth. Taylor Swift, great. But that's your opinion. And what happens is, and this is where it's insidious, people hear that from someone who has achieved externally and revered and is actually very talented. So they take that to be the truth. So what they do is, if they don't have a real belief in themselves and they don't dive into that 95% unconscious model I always talk about,
yeah.
Then you start to actually believe that bullcrap voice deep inside you that says that, well, why would you believe you have talent? Why would you believe you have what it takes? Why would you believe in yourself? So we are in this place of where all these opinions exist constantly. But the idea is to find that little, small, tiny little. So you ask about my voice. So very dramatic, but here's the story. So I grew up in a very abusive household. My mother was severely mentally ill. She killed herself. And this is a spoiler alert. So everybody just buckle up, because this is not like your mama's podcast right now.
Nope.
So just so we're ready, here we go. There's been a lot of sexual abuse in my family. Now, it took me years to unpack this and not be ashamed about it. And I'm very vocal about it now. But I was very sexual at a very young age. And my mother was, my grandmother was. It was a very big thing. So I was having sex at like 8 and 9.
Wow.
Which is unreal for people to hear. And I used to never talk about this because I was worried people would think blah, blah, blah. Well, at about 9 or 10, I was having an affair with an older man in the neighborhood. And of course, now I know it was rape, and now I know it was abuse, right?
Wow.
The thing that no one wants to talk about, and I always love to talk about the thing no one talks about, and I have met so many people now there was one part of me that thought I wanted it and one part of me that enjoyed it. And that was the shame, right? So this was happening. Also, secretly, I was going to downtown Seattle and I was turning tricks inside porn theaters at a very young age. And I thought this was normal. I thought this is what people did. Like, let's go play hopscotch, go to tetherball, and I don't know, go to a porn theater and jack off old men. I thought it was normal.
Gosh.
So this was happening. I just thought it was a normal reality. My mother was abusing me. She was horrible. So she built in me this, she literally, and I talk with a lot of people about this privately, she tore my heart apart. And I just thought the way I felt, this pervasive sense of doom, but weird euphoria at the same time. I thought it was normal. I thought this was normal. I was like, well, this is just the way it goes as a kid, right? Well, when they found out that I was gay, and I was with boys and girls a lot in high school, they said, you can't live here. So they kicked me out. So I was homeless when I was a kid. And I was living on the streets of Seattle for a short spell before they took me back in and I finished high school. I was like 14, 15. It's kind of fuzzy. And I was standing in Seattle on a street corner. It was raining. I'm pretty sure this is the memory, but memory I think is elusive. So it's probably a little dramatic because I tend to be dramatic by nature. But then, you know, that's my style. But I remember the moment I was standing under a street lamp. It was raining in Seattle. What else is new? And I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, I just called my sister and asked her to take me in and she wouldn't take me in. She said, this is your and mom and dad stuff. I can't do it because she was still reeling from what happened to her as a little girl, right? And she was studying child abnormal psychology in college. What a shocker. But she wouldn't take me in. My parents wouldn't take me in. My grandmother, who was schizophrenic, wouldn't take me in. I had nowhere to go. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I stood there under the street lamp. And I was about to go down the street, put on this outfit that one of these kids I had met downtown gave me and turn tricks. That's what I was doing to eat, right? Live.
Wow.
And I heard this little voice inside of me say, you're going to be okay. I was like, you're going to be okay. I was like, and I hung my hat on that star for the rest of my life.
Wow.
What that was, I don't know. I have questioned God. I have questioned being a man of faith. I have many times lost my faith. I have been called a preacher. I have been called a counselor. I have been called a healer. I have been called in selective places, which is absurd, guru-like. And it's like, that's not my thing. But I can tell you, I had a moment that carried me through the rest of my life. And I went through lots of suicide attempts, lots of depression, lots of anxiety, falling apart, lots of carbs. And I mean, we're talking, I don't need a man. I just need like a pizza. So, you know what I mean? Like, you know, double crust pizza and pepperoni. Who needs love?
Oh man.
I'm talking to you there.
Yes.
You're like a pizza guy.
Love it.
So do you understand that moment? Like, I know you've had, you know, everybody's afraid to talk about God or spirituality. I'm not. But whatever that was, something was telling me.
How did you hear that? How did you feel that? Or how do you still hear and feel that, Mike?
It's that there's a strange, and this has always been the thing. People now, we have a phone where we can gain access to the greatest thinkers of all of civilization, right?
Yeah.
And these thinkers and these people we can listen to will tell us what 2,000 years of philosophy, theological thought, psychology have brought up, right? So you get these people you're listening to, and they say it's like this, an opinion, and this is the way it works, right? But the truth of the matter is, life is not definable. There's a unknowable, mysterious, you can't really say what it is, and that's the point. We're not supposed to have it all figured out. We're not supposed to know. And it's that great idea from Eckhart Tolle who said, you know, that crazy German who really needs some espresso, oh my God, that man. I've given his recordings to people, and I've had clients say, never do that again. I've never been more bored. However, I love what he says. Anyway, so the thing he said was, be okay with not being okay. Be okay with the uncomfortable. Be okay with the non answering. So what I always knew is I had these two disparaging sides of me. And my mother was manic depressive. She was borderline personality disorder. My grandmother was schizophrenic. So there was vague oscillating emotional states within me. And so what I learned early on is my voice was a very unique wonderland, because as a child, my sisters fled very early and I was alone in the house with my mother. My mother was my best friend and she was my
Oh
abuser.
boy.
So I had no friends. So I had an inner fantasy life. I had an inner life like you wouldn't believe. Like I was lost in this inner world. And so I learned how to listen to that voice inside of me. And today, when I hear these declarative statements, when I hear this is true, and this almost aggressive, toxic positivity demanding a person high vibe, or I get this, the world is not like that. Be a realist. It's darker than that. I'm like, no, no, no. It's goulash. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. You don't just friggin' take, hello. Goulash is good too, but it
goulash.
goulash is great. Life is not just one this or one that. So I distrust, some thought leaders that say, oh, just, high vibe and think positive thoughts and watch your mantras and watch your unconscious belief system, all the stuff we've talked about, right? Stay in your habits and all that. But then you read like philosophers, or you read great thinkers, or you look at great works of art, and they were mixed, like the works of Francis Bacon, the great painter. You look at these things and you see horrible things, and then you see the beauty simultaneously.
Yeah.
Because in my life, I had a lot of that stuff. Go ahead.
This is stuff that this is lots of this is why we connected. The uncomfortableness of growth, and what's on the other side of growth is fulfillment and happiness. But getting uncomfortable is not.
But that's what's making us more unhappy, is this pursuit of happiness. I don't think that exists.
Yeah.
Happiness is a slippery eel. See, that's a basic, broad, encompassing sort of idea that causes people to be more unhappy. No, I really believe, because I experienced as a young boy, I was farting My Little Ponies. I was listening to Xanadu. I'm still into disco. I was listening to Donna Summer singing Bad Girls, and I was giving fellatio to a trick at 12 behind a dumpster in Seattle.
Wow.
So I tend to have a little bit of a different view about all of it.
Yeah.
So
the uncomfortable part, though, like, I got to interview James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy guy, right? And he was the one that got on Andy's podcast in 2019, and they were talking about this new concept, this 75 hard. And James said something when he got uncomfortable was when he had the most growth, and that putting himself in uncomfortable environments daily is what helped him get to this next level of himself or whatever, right? But I'm listening to your story, Mike, and all the uncomfortable things that you've been through have brought you to this point. And what I really like about my circle right now is lots of us have different legs of life. Like, you've had so many legs of life.
What's that mean?
Well, I'm going to tell you. So, like, for me,
I got great stems, so of course I'm thinking all about me. I'm like, what does he mean? Has he seen my legs? Because I have great legs. Go ahead.
Legs of life is different avenues and journeys that we've been on, not for a day or a week, but for years. Like, for years, I was an athlete. For years, I was in college. For years, I taught private voice lessons. For years, I was a public school teacher, right? For years, I did, meditation, and I went to therapy, and I started doing this work, right? And then I got really into personal development 5 years ago and started really diving into that. And now what I'm noticing, and I'm noticing with you, noticing with a lot of my circle, is that all those legs of our lives, and I know that you have so many, I can't wait to hear all of yours for you to say what they are, right? But now all of those legs are coming together into who we actually are all the time, right?
But I think the bottom line though is really your perception of yourself, who you know yourself to be, constantly going to that 95%, that old analogy, that the understanding of the self, capital S, the true understanding of that is it's the analogy of 95% of our unconscious is underwater, the iceberg is the 5%. So that image that everyone talks about, I cannot tell you how difficult it is when I say to clients, so put on your scuba gear. We're going to go under that 95%, and it's going to be we're going to have a hard time finding that, and you are not going to like me. You are not going to talk about it, but being abused,
goosebumps,
right?
Again, uncomfortable. Yeah. That it's such a key. And I just want to, you come back to what you were going to say, but I want to just use that point to what you just said.
Right.
For anybody that's listening to this episode, to this podcast today, what Mike just talked about going in the 95% and digging deep and going under the surface, right? To be able to know yourself, that is essential, because the uncomfortableness of that is what's going to break you through. And
but let me add on that. So to pivot off of that, so the uncomfortable is we are emotional creatures, and emotions are not. David Hawkins has a great, in Surrender in his book, a great model of it. There's lots of people who talk about it, but emotions have striations. They have textures. Emotions are not just anger. It's not just sorrow. There are textures. They commingle. They're like different paints coming together to make a new color.
I love that.
So emotions, and we're emotional beings. So many people I work with who are very advanced academics or public speakers or celebrities or people who manage celebrities, there is a safe place in the mind to live. They live in their intellectual prowess. They live in their processing. They don't integrate this understanding of the intrinsic, deeper emotional state that lives within in different striations and different levels, like different sounds of music. So, and they don't live with that wave, they go with it. So they don't allow it and then surrender and allow. So that integration between the cerebral safe place for people. See, that's why very intelligent people do well, but then later on in life, they feel very lost because they've never really understood what to label, what to name, and not, most of us have feelings about our feelings. So that, right?
That is so true.
And it's weird.
Gosh.
Yeah. So you have judgments about the anxiety. I shouldn't be depressed. I shouldn't be anxious. Why am I being an asshole? Well, what is it about you that doesn't accept that we're all of everything all at once, as they say, right? So the understanding of self is to understand that the self is a product of what we were conditioned by, what we observe, what we see. And there's a mysterious thing that does not want to be seen, because if you dive under and look at what is in the unconscious meaning the dark region, if it's in the dark region, that's the shadow work, that's the darker aspects, right? We don't want to look at those. Everybody has an asshole to them. Everybody has someone who flips someone off in traffic. Everybody has an aspect that says, "Oh, Judy, it's great to see you," and then steps away. My God, look at her. She's such a bitch. We all have that side to us. It's neither good nor bad. It just is.
Yep. I remember you working with me on this, and it was very uncomfortable to recognize that.
But it is what makes us human.
Yep.
And improv can't even.
Oh, that was so good, Mike. The improv just spewed out.
Well, they like, hammer it into you. Believe me, you're admonished to be. Yeah.
Yes, and.
Yeah, I do, right? We live in a world, and Robert Greene of late has been of interest to me. We live in a world where you just can't simply spew your truth to people and think you're not going to have some repercussions.
Oh, yeah.
there is the, as I always say, there's the in front of the office door and there's the behind the office door, and you have to be cognizant of what you show at the same time. Mm. We are inordinately, unconsciously ruled by a fear that is not true and is an illusion that allows us to keep way too much behind the closed door and not in front of it, because we really, really do not really love and accept and believe that those aspects are not detrimental, but beneficial, necessary, and things that make us extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't have a lot of people to talk to about those things.
Which is right. And so when I work with people who are very visible and we talk about the persona, like in Jungian psychology, the persona, the creation of the thing that's like a monetary, is a version of us. It's like the story I always tell. So Beyonce, she was a young singer and she couldn't find the courage to get up on stage. So she created Sasha Fierce.
Yep.
So Sasha Fierce was like, just a complete badass, right? So when she slipped into Sasha Fierce, it was a visceral thing, and she got on stage and she did her thing and she was amazing, electric, right? She told the story one day she stepped off stage as Sasha Fierce. And she looked down and said, "Oh my God, Beyonce, your leg." And she looked down and there was a cut and she was bleeding. She didn't feel it because she was Sasha Fierce.
Wow.
Now you notice she has dropped Sasha because she's integrated.
Yeah.
So when we integrate, we can be the totality of us because we've done the work to love all aspects, to know that all of our brains are the same. None of our brains are different. To have the illusion that any of us aren't the same at our core. And the only thing that bypasses that is emotion. It's like, I remember when I was young, there was a civil rights thing that was happening, and I didn't quite understand it. And I knew a couple of guys at school that were black, and we always got along and were very chatty. And it was just not a thing with me because I was the gay kid. So, of course, I understood sort of feeling like an outsider. And there was a video my father showed one day, and he said to me, "I want you to look at this, and I want you to remember this." And it was this horrifying video of it was a very famous video, and then a photo, because he was huge into photos, of spraying. There was people during a march, like people being sprayed with a hose, black people against a wall, right? And I burst out in tears because the visceral response to me was, how can we do that to each other? But what lodged in me was, emotionally, when I really connect to the full totality of the essence of me, I know that while we culturally, societally, while we may racially, gender, sexual preference may be different, as beings, as an essence, we are all the same.
Yeah.
We are all connected. And you feel that when you learn to live in that emotional place, right?
And you give people direction on that journey with working.
Direction. Yes. Yes. And I come at them because what happened was, because I was an abused kid, whenever my mother would do something or something would happen to me, I would always be like, da, 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 da. I would distract her. Right? I was, look at over here. Look at the shiny object. She'd be like, "Oh, you're so funny, creepy kid. I guess I won't throw the toaster at you."
Oh my God.
"Oh, you make me laugh, creepy kid. I guess I won't call you the names I call you." You know what I mean? So I deflected my monstrous mother's abuse, and then I got her love. So I learned to please people. I learned to be what they wanted. But what I did was I then cared way too much what people think about me. I censored myself. But what I gained, which is why the great benefit of abuse and mental illness is just the greatest friggin' gift you're ever going to get. I gained an ability to feel into people. Yeah. And I can always, and I say, "Oh, I know what's really going on there. I know what you think you want me to tell you what's going on, but I can tell you what's really going on." So it was that abuse gave me that gift. And one of my big things is, for years I talked about it, but because I went through a grandmother who was schizophrenic, a mother who killed herself, had borderline personality disorder, had my sister when she was 13 in Idaho. My grandmother had my mother when
Wow.
she was 14. My other sister had her
Wow.
first kid when she was 15. I was having sex at 8. So just think about what that does to a little beautiful little gooey child.
Mm.
So my work talking to little Mike, loving little Mike, being there for little Mike as an adult and saying, I've got this under control, kiddo. You're good. I love you. You're a fabulous
Mm.
kid.
That's great.
To not mock that, to really respect that, and to really
Yep.
honor that, right? And then to say to myself, okay, if this is a gift and I'd like to get a gift receipt, I'd like to return it, please, because this isn't such a great gift.
Mm.
But if there is an order or a logic to this, and I don't always feel that, if there
Yeah.
is, what is the gift that I was given? And what is it that I can do with that gift? And that gift is to help other people not suffer. It's like what Robin Williams once said. The reason he made people laugh is he didn't want them to suffer like he did.
Mm.
And my niece has Lewy body syndrome, so she had what he had. So I have a lot of experience with mental health and stuff. So I'm not afraid of the darkness. I'm suspicious of constant happiness all the time. I don't think that's a real thing.
Yeah.
But I do believe that the goal in our lives is to find as much emotional balance. And then when we live in the real world, you have to, whether you like it or not, show something that is not this whole big thing that everybody, thinks you should show, but instead you have to show aspects working in the real world and real
Mm.
environments. And because I work in very high and influential, especially in entertainment and media, there is an egoic response system that has to be honored. And you're talking ego to ego. You have to be careful. You can't just be all these emotions.
So your work that talk to us a little bit about the writing aspect, because I read some of your book that you sent me,
Mm-hmm.
and then some of the writing you've done for TV shows and some of the scripts that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
You lived in New York for a very long time.
Oh yeah, I lived in New York for 30 years. I fled the mother. She's a noun. I fled the mother with my sister at 23, and I went to New England. And then I went to Boston and then school in New York. I was there for 30 years, and I moved here 3 years ago. When I was in New York, I couldn't get my emotional stuff together. I was just a mess. I couldn't do it. And I couldn't figure out why. And I remember my father, the irony is my dad was a family psychologist.
Man.
So he watched my mother abuse me, but didn't protect me or save me because he was lost at sea. But he gave me all these books to read about abuse, but never stopped her.
Wow.
It's strange, isn't it? So I would, as a child, everyone's reading like Spider-Man comics on the bus, and I'm reading Jung, Freud, Nietzsche. I'm like, this is really great. Did you realize this about the Oedipal complex? And I'm like, why am I reading Oedipal complex in junior high? Well, it was my dad's way of trying to help me, right?
Mm.
So as I got older, I had all these resources that I've been reading: quantum physics, Seth Speaks, everything. I grew up with the 70s self-help movement, which was massive. I'm
Wow.
okay, you're okay, my mother, myself, all those huge books, right? But I couldn't get it together. So I was a assistant at a TV network,
Yeah.
working for a massive narcissist. So of course I was with him for 10 years. I can't say that, it's too vulgar. Let's just say, I can't say, I want to say it so bad, it's so funny. I say it in stand up, but I can't. Let's just say, yeah, I kept him happy. And I knew how to,
Okay.
but I was miserable. I was chunky, sucking down the carbs. And then I started to write my memoir about my life. And I started to write this book, and it ended up becoming this enormous tome, 3 books about my life. And
Wow.
suddenly something internally started to shift. and I started to heal.
Whoa.
And I was like, what's happening? So I submitted it to Simon and Schuster, and I won the second place in the Memoir of the Year contest, sponsored with Rita Wilson, Simon and Schuster.
Okay.
And I was told by numerous publishers, your story is fascinating. I don't think the world's really ready for it, but I'm really glad you're healing.
Wow.
So nobody back then wanted to hear it, right? It was too graphic. When? This was like 2018, 17, right? And it was called Creepy Kid.
Oh, okay.
Right. So that was the name my mother called me.
Man.
That was her term of endearment. Shit for brains, idiot, creepy kid, all those things, right? So it was my way of sort of taking back the power of that. And everybody kept saying, oh, that's not you anymore. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm not going to drop that. And everybody for years has tried to get me to get rid of that title. I even listened to someone recently here in Los Angeles that wanted me to call it something else. I'm not. It's back to Creepy Kid.
Yeah.
So I wrote those 3 books. Then I met this glorious woman in Los Angeles, Jen Grisanti. And she is a mentor to many writers, but she really does specialize in all forms, but she's a maverick with television writing. And I met this beautiful soul, and I wrote a TV pilot for the book. But I wrote it for a fictitious family. So they're the O'Sullivans, not the Bryans, but they're my family.
Right.
And something happened. When I wrote it, I thought, okay, I'm able to just distance myself. Now, long story short, but this is fascinating. So I was able to write that because I went to go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino's movie.
Okay.
I had no idea what it was about, but Tarantino, movie nerd. So I go to that movie and I'm realizing, oh no, it's about the Manson family. Now, in 1976, Helter Skelter came out on television. This was a massive 2-part movie event. It was a scandal. It was all about Charles Manson and how he had killed all these people in Helter Skelter, the book, in the 60s. And it was huge. And it was in California where it took place. Now, I was in Seattle. Now, when the movie came out, it was in the zeitgeist everywhere, the Mansons. Mm. And I saw the second part of the movie with my mother. And there's one scene in that movie where they're talking about the murders, and it was very clever. It's hypnotic. You watch it, and as the person that did the murdering is talking, in the background, you see one of the victims run out, and you see one of the Manson people come and stab them in the back with a knife over and over.
Holy crap.
Now, I was 12, and it horrified me. For months, I had nightmares, because Charles Manson said in the movie, people are so stupid. In the summer, they leave their windows open with the screens. All you got to do is cut the screen and go in and kill the pigs. Oh. So I had these nightmares for a very long time. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood starts. And I'm like, okay, I don't watch things with the Mansons. I'm not staying for this movie. I'm not staying. My friend's like, no, we got to stay. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't watch this. So the end's coming. And I'm not spoiling anything. If you haven't seen it, it's on you. So the end comes. And I see the Manson people coming in to kill these people in the house, and my body starts to shake.
Oh, my God.
I'm feeling sick. I feel that old trauma coming up inside of me, right? And then Brad Pitt turns the tables like Quentin Tarantino did and took the girl and took her face and bashed it against the mantle of that fireplace. And you know what I did? I had no control. My body bolted up, and I'm like, yes, kill her, kill her. I'm screaming. My friend's like, would you shut up? Sit down. Oh, my God. And I'm like, I'm sorry. So I sat down. The movie ended, and I felt this years of trauma go whoosh.
Whoa.
And I walked out. And at the front, because it was the premiere, was this huge, fat producer. You know the type. Looked like they would eat like children for breakfast. And he's sitting there with these hands over this enormous stomach. And I said to him, I'm going to swear now. You ready? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
I said, that is a great motherfucking movie. And he looks at me. He's like, isn't it?
Oh.
So I thought, wait a minute. if I write a TV pilot based upon my life, but I tell the ending that that little kid who never had a chance deserved, which is to find love and acceptance and a place where he belongs at home, maybe I will heal at the deepest levels. And I did. And that pilot won the Austin Film Festival. And right now, I am taking that pilot and that story, and I'm showing it around town, and I am getting all sorts of rejections. And the answers I hear is, who do you think is going to want to watch a television show about a family in the 70s where the mother is mentally ill, overly sexual, abusing her son's a child prostitute, and the father's not doing anything to save them, and he's sleeping with his patients? Who's going to want to watch that?
Bro.
And I'm like, everybody. Because you know why? They're going to know it's not them. So you're going to feel better about your life.
Dude, goosebumps.
Right? And you're going to want to know why people survive that. And I'm the boy that lived.
Man. Yeah, I just got a vision of like Netflix or Amazon Prime picking that up.
That's what I'm trying to do. So right now I had people that were helping with it, but Hollywood, there's a lot of very flighty, not very consistent people here. Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. But right now what I'm doing is I have that. I also have a movie I wrote called Black Angel, which is a film noir that's, of course, enormous mommy issues attached to it. But the point is, in my work and in what I just told you, the idea of revisionistic narrative, right? I now work with people who, and select few, who want to do, and I've just finished with a client his memoir, an enormous book that we're pitching, showing around to publishers. But it's not legacy work. It's about understanding how the narrative that is deep within the subtextual, as we said, diving down to the unconscious, that refuses to be seen, must be chased. You must encounter it. You must welcome it and evoke the beast. And it can only happen by that kind of deep investigative work. You can't do it just by talking and about looking at a meme or reading a book. See, this work we talk about, it's wonderful and broad, but until you specify it to your individual experience, and unless you get to the details, the minutia of your that's why I talk about my stuff with no shame anymore. It took me years. I was so ashamed about my past. It's not to get a response. It's to say, I want you to invoke the dragons out of the cave. I want you to stand there with a sword and a shield in your hand, and I want you to defy them. I want you to defy them. But you have to tell me, what is the texture of that dragon? How big is it? What does it smell like?
Yep.
Because your dragon is different than mine. And that dragon is what you were taught about yourself, what you were raised with. And if you had a wonderful, go-lucky, skip around the planet childhood, fabulous. I could learn so much from you. That's not really my experience, but okay. Even though I had moments that were gorgeous, there was a wonderland of strangeness to my childhood.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I know the work that you did with me really helped me a ton. Like it, in a time of really the worst moment of my life, where everything kind of just came together at once. At the same time, and I was so blessed to have you, and then a couple other people in my circle that I could tell everything to, right? So I know I can feel, and I know the work that you do because you've helped me a lot. But as a voice coach, I know when my client gets to that point in the sessions with me, it's about in the middle. And something will come up, and I love that you said this in the podcast. I go after them, I get them, right? Because I do that too. And when I'm with my client and I see that moment, I'm like, oh, what was that? That right there. And there are people and I know you know this too because you've dealt with it, I'm sure. But there are adults, people that when you say, "Hey, what was that right there?" they get really uncomfortable.
Defensive.
And
It's ego. It's
they
ego.
get
They get defensive.
defensive,
Yeah.
and they stay in it with you, and you work through it. Or what happens? They bolt. They leave.
Well, but what's wonderful is because I've learned to be loving and kind to myself, and I'm obsessed with, because I have to. I'm turning 60 this summer, and really, the clock is ticking, and I know that I've finally come to this place. But you come when you arrive, and I've arrived, but I'm working. The loving someone, caring for them, looking at this, this work. While I do many things, acting, writing, and this work, the integrity is true. It's real. I know it is for you as well. It means everything to me that someone will trust me, and I take it very seriously. And I there's a tremendous responsibility there.
Yes.
And I don't think a lot of people should be doing it because I don't think they understand that it needs to be a legitimate, all-pervasive calling. You can't just coach people, mentor people to make money. You have to really know that it's got so much integrity, nobility to it. It's very important.
Well, you said it. It's healing. There's healing that you have, that I have, that I'm not afraid to say that now.
What do you mean by that?
Well, wow, this is on the podcast. Why not? So for
Did you hear what I just talked about?
Yeah, dude. So for 20 years, I've been coaching people one-on-one. That's a lot of people, thousands of people. And, I get better, and I find different ways to help people in a faster way. But the most unique things happened probably about 10 or 15 years ago when I would have adults, students unload really dark things in my presence. And what I noticed, kind of like Green Mile, the movie Green Mile with John Coffey, is he would touch people and he would take their pain away, and then he would, out of his mouth come this darkness would come out of his mouth, that he would get rid of it, right? And there was a moment that a student told me something, and it was really dark, really awful. And I remember telling my wife at the time, I can't come home. I need to go somewhere. And I just can't come home. I can't bring this home because I took it on, because that's what I did.
Why do you think you took it on? What did it? Because there was something alive inside of you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken it on, right?
I obviously we connect to our clients. We empathize with them. We understand them, and in this case, this
had nothing to do with the client, though.
Well, but this issue I'd never heard before, right?
Okay.
And so I took that to the Catholic Church here because the Catholic Church was open. I walked in, didn't know what I was doing. I walked in, I sat down on a pew, and I just said, God, this is not mine. Take it. I don't know what to do with this. And eventually it lifted. It went away.
What was the feeling?
Freedom.
What was the feeling prior to the freedom? Revulsion?
Like tight, caged.
That's not a feeling. What's
disgusting? Disgusting.
There we go. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
And so I went home, and it was good. And I realized in that moment, okay, when people give me that, like, it's in light, and it's not mine. And so that's kind of how this started, right? And then recently,
can I ask you a question before
Sure.
you go on? Is that okay?
Yeah.
What do you mean it's not yours?
Well, that darkness is not mine.
But darkness does. Do you agree that darkness does live inside of you, though?
Does it live inside me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So the reason that you had that response, do you think might have been what?
Stirred something up, maybe.
That exists already inside of you.
Yeah.
See, that's the stuff you don't want to dive and look at, and that's the hard part.
Yeah.
So if we have a really strong response, even in extreme circumstances, because I know it's extreme, there's usually something, this is as basic as it gets, but we don't want to agree to this. There's something inside of us that lives that we don't want to look at nor accept and integrate.
Yeah.
Right? And we live in an age now of it's very easy to judge, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
and yet everyone says, this is the saying on social media, what do you care? Let people do what they want to do, but then they turn around and judge somebody else because they're doing something that may not be what they do. Yep. So did that change your relationship with yourself?
Yeah, the responsibility part that you were talking about, it really made me understand the gift part of what I provide for people.
What does that mean?
It wasn't just yeah. It wasn't just that at that moment. It was a bigger picture. And when I was 31, 32, to know that there's more to this than just some scales and getting the vowel shape correct and all that. Like,
that's your darkness. That's what I like about you. You know that, right?
What?
The surface is great. I mean, you present, everything's great. You know that. But what I like is that darkness in you. I find that really fascinating, intriguing.
Yeah. It's come out, especially when Andrea told me that she wanted to get divorced in August 5th on a Zoom call, much like we're on right now.
How do you feel now? Because I talked to you during, and I wondered about that because there was a disconnect there that I was intrigued with. How do you feel now?
I feel, because in that moment, all of my support systems completely, the ones that I leaned upon, all my support systems turned their back. And I'm sorry, I'm being facetious. Of course they did. So why do you think they turned their back, though? Tell everybody what you know now about the human condition. This is important. I hate that word. This is vital. Okay, so my identity changed completely. So I thought, right? So I looked at myself as a public school teacher, right? As a voice coach, as a husband, as a father, right? And in that moment, I realized, wow, I'm losing my wife right now. A couple of the people that I really care about have turned their back on me. I'm not going back to public school.
How did you feel about the people that turned their back on you?
Oh man, abandoned, big time.
And what else?
Pissed.
Yeah, that's right. Not just pissed. What might be another word?
Carnal anger. And that's what happened on the Zoom. Yeah, it was rage on the Zoom call.
Yeah.
I remember I had the Bruce Banner fortitude to push mute on Zoom, and I lost my mind.
Yeah, good. Great.
Just
fantastic.
Just
fantastic.
Wild, right? And the next day, of course, as you know, I got up and did my routine and had to pay for plane tickets home and had to realize, okay, did this really just happen, right? And so where I'm at now is I've done a lot of work, as you know, and with you, with myself, with trying to rediscover my loves, my passions, my creativity. And you're going to love this because this is perfect timing. Vikings on Broadway was a big deal to me, and I had a blast doing it, and I missed it. I got to watch them do it last night. And, Angela's been talking to me about, because she can see it, and I know you see it too. I miss being creative.
You're an actor. You're an actor in addition, like me. And I want to add this in here too. This shift, right? This integration you went through, this thing you went through. for anybody who's listening and saying this to you, when you're out of your mind and you're going through a really difficult time, please, and this is the realist side of me in this real world. This is real world. We're not going to sit here and just be positive. Note the people that vanish. Those are not your friends. And the reason they're not your friends is because it triggered something so seismic within them. It's like, and this is not about you, but there are many clients that I worked with who have had very public actions in the press. And they come to me ready for me to judge those actions. And I'm like, who the frig am I to judge you? Wow. And I'm not going to vilify. They're shocked. They're like, yeah, but that action. I'm like, what? It's an action. Now this judgment, good, bad, note that in life, because we all have moments where things crumble. Note that, and note the people that are there to listen and don't judge. The rest are not your friends. And if they come back around, do not let them back in your life, is what I will say to people. See, that's real world.
Yep. And I've heard you say that to me.
Yeah, don't be all forgiving and lovey-dovey and spirituality, because I hear this all the time. And I'm like, what world do you live in where you don't think there are horrible people here that turn their back on someone suffering? That's okay. It is what it is, but don't let them back in.
Yeah.
But the people that do show up, always make time. Always make time.
So where I'm at right now is reclaiming of the creativity. That's
what does it mean, really? Say it without too much verbiage. Like, what does that really mean?
I'm going to perform, and I'm going to create a performing group, and so I'm going to give excellence back to.
Could you do me a favor? Could you give it to yourself first before you create a group for someone else? Because I'm so enamored. I think it's fabulous. I'm more like, yeah, that's nice, but about me. So I think that's lovely. I would love for you, though, for you to just simply push and absorb and live in the fear and the anxiety and the judgment of you performing for you. Give it to you first.
Yeah.
Okay?
Again, you sound like me. You sound like me right now with my clients.
Oh, I can't imagine why. There's a reason we're friends. The cultural thing about you need to be here in service of everybody, it's a lovely idea. However, we all know the truth. We're all monstrously self-absorbed, and it's a good thing. We're all about us, right? So if you don't exhibit and live in the totality of you and then discover things you don't even know exist by forcing yourself, like me doing improv.
Yeah.
I'm with the Groundlings right now, and I'm finishing the basic thing, and I'm hot and cold with it. I know I'm not as good as other people are, right?
Can you talk about the other thing?
What, Groundlings?
No.
What?
The other thing you auditioned for.
The movie?
No, well, okay, but the thing that's very difficult to get into in Los Angeles.
Actor Studio.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't get in.
Oh man.
No, this was an epiphany. So this is fascinating. So I'm part of Groundlings. I went up one day, and there are two people in the group that I felt were kind of judging me. So all my stuff came up.
Oh boy.
So I go into Groundlings, and I'm the last person to go up one day. And I can't respond. I close up. And I don't know what's wrong with me, and I can't respond. You have to be very present. Groundlings has lots of rules. And the man who teaches is phenomenal. He's a wealth of information. He's doing his best to guide me. But I close up because at one point, before I did my scene, there was another woman across from me in the Groundlings. And she was struggling, and she's like me. She's very heady, and she struggles with this. So she was having a hard time, so I moved my chair towards her, right? Now, the thing about me is I don't miss a trick. I couldn't as a child. So I'm cursed with seeing everything.
Yep.
So these two people in the class, when I moved my chair towards my scene partner, they're like, oh my God, back up. And I could feel they were like, oh my God, he's so intense, too much. I heard all these things in my head my mother used to say and stuff, right? I didn't care. I was encouraging to this woman. She goes, you were such a cheerleader. I love that. I'm like, because I am a cheerleader. I used to be literally too. And so then I do my scene and I close up. Last week, I'm walking home. I'm sobbing after Groundlings. I'm like, what is going on with me? So I meet my scene partner for Actors Studio. And she just let me let it rip. She was so kind. She listened to me. It's like, what's going on here? And everything came up. What came up was, I'm too old. Why am I doing this? My time has passed. Who is an actor at nearly 60 in Los Angeles? Why did I have to come at this point? Why did it take so long to get here? I'm not very good. I don't have what it takes. All these things. Next day I had therapy. Talked to my shrink I've known forever. And what I realized was that I really still have this thing where I don't fully and utterly believe in myself and believe in my talent. And I got it from my mother. So I turned it around like we're told to do. And I thought, no, people do support me. People do believe in me. So then I worked on the Scene for Actors studio. And David Hawkins has a great thing. He says, if you just drop all the blocks that stop you from being the magnificent person you are, if you just surrender it and let it go, something will happen. So I've been doing that. You know, you're like me, like study, read, do it. You know, you're like a walking TED Talk, right? It's like you could burst into a TED Talk in the mall of the toilet.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here doing all this, right? We did the audition. I dropped in, and everything every actor wants to happen happened. My body went to places I didn't think it would.
Yep.
And I felt great, and I sobbed afterwards. I was so happy. We didn't get in. But I said to myself, that's okay.
Yep.
I did the best I could at that moment.
Yep.
And I remembered, and this is why this matters, I remembered a writing instructor years ago when I had just gotten my shit together. I was like 22. I was about to leave Seattle. I went to Seattle Central Community College, and a woman named Nada Oakley, she handed me, it's a great name. She was brilliant. She handed me a paper I had written, and she looked at me. She said, I know you've been through a lot, but look at me now. You can do the work. I was like, oh, thank you so much. I so appreciate you. I feel so empowered. And
oh my God.
Those moments, and what happened recently, we're all constantly trying to be the person that we're meant to be.
Yep.
But until you truly, and you've heard this so many times, until you thrust yourself into the most uncomfortable situations possible, to echo what you said earlier, and you fall miserably on your face and then dive into the emotions that are coming up, and then you let yourself feel all that, and then you listen to what you spew, that is the bottom of the iceberg. That is the deep water. And if you note that, then you're like, okay, that's what I really believe about myself. So if the inversion is the truth, and self-help sometimes and new thought is like, live in the inversion, hide in the mantra. Okay, wait a minute, just relax. If it's a middle place, okay, so I'm learning to really believe in myself. Okay, so I'm going to learn to believe that I do have what it takes, that I can do the work, that I'm worthy of this. I'm going to allow myself to think that way, and you don't judge that or mock that. Then it's individualized.
Yeah.
Then you've gotten to the core. But until you test yourself and do that, until you thrust yourself into those situations, you know, you will never be able to find that true gunk underneath there.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
That's on the money, 1,000,000%. You know, Mike, we're gonna have to do a part 2.
Oh, that's a sequel.
Yeah, we'll do a sequel.
Just like Dune 2. We'll have lots of sand creatures, and, you know, I'll wear a turban.
Hey, I wasn't gonna watch Dune 2, but now I might, because Hans Zimmer did the soundtrack, and I love Hans Zimmer.
You're such a Hans Zimmer. I can see you literally lifting a KB to Hans Zimmer. I can see you like pushing a tire to Hans Zimmer. I would laugh so hard if I heard your headphones going dun 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 dun.
That's all you, dude. Every day. Dun 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 dun. Yep.
You know, it's funny being a gay guy who I listen to like Donna Summer, and then I'll listen to Hans Zimmer, and then I'll listen to like you know, Kim Petras doing some filthy like cover of a song, and then I'll listen to like Guns N' Roses. That's me. Wow. I'm like that gay bro Jim bra cracks me up. Bra. I always think of like, are we wearing bras? Are we? What is this playtex?
Oh
What are we
my
doing
God.
here? Yeah.
So if people want to get in touch with you, Mike, what's the best way for them to do that?
Skywriting. So I live in Beverly Hills. So if you just hire a skywriter and just tell me, I'm joking. I love the intention. You're like, skywriting. This is a new answer. I haven't heard this one.
What the heck is he talking
about? Michael at michaelcbryan.com. So it's MICHAEL at MICHAELCBRYAN.com. I've got three first names, Mike, Chris, Bryan.
And we will put that in the show notes along with his bio and ways that you can support Mike. And we will definitely have you back on the show because there's a lot to still unpack and uncover. And we want to catch up and find out more. We want to find out more about your voice and how you help others, because you are helping people find their voice also, which is awesome. And as a musician, actor, and you are an actor and a writer, it's kind of awesome to know like the work you're doing is so deep and so good. And I hope that people that listen to the show, you want to work with Mike, give him a message, and hopefully, he can get that going for you.
That's very kind. Thank you, Matt. And I want to say in parting to everyone, the world is a curious place right now. We have access to so many things, so many resources, so many opinions, so many voices. It's glorious. The expression of ourselves privately and the expression of ourselves publicly is really the thing to be questioned, to understood, to be created, to be implemented, and how we do that in an authentic way.
Yep.
Individually, and thrive in our careers and our personal life. That really is the question, particularly if like me and you and other people that I work with that are public. It's an art. It's an art, and it's confusing and it's challenging. But just know I can see how difficult that is. But it's the best work there is if you wish to be public in any sort of forum too. And that I would say to anybody that puts stuff on social and publicly. So yeah, so I know it's challenging, and I see that, and I commend people for doing the inner work. I really do.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, make sure to follow Mike on Instagram. He has some great stories every day that are very entertaining and very helpful. But we will see you guys next week. And thank you so much for being on the show, Mike.
Bye.
Bye.